Welcome to 10 Kids, 2 Docs. I'm Dr. Vivian Carlin, and I'm joined by my dear friend and co-host, Dr. Sylvia Bank. Between our two households, we're navigating life with 10 children, so we know how chaotic parenting can be. As Johns Hopkins trained pediatricians, we also know the science. Our goal is to bring you the best of both worlds, medically sound, trustworthy advice, and practical, real-world insights as we dive into the trials and triumphs of parenting. Please note this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment from your doctor.
Today we're in part 2 of our autism series with Dr. Teresa Lyons. She is a mother of a child with autism, a scientist by training, and the founder of Navigating Autism, where you can find free resources for parents on her website. In our first episode, we discussed how and when children are diagnosed with autism, what it felt like for Dr. Lyons as a parent when her child was diagnosed, and first steps to take after the diagnosis. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into challenges parents face navigating ongoing healthcare and therapy for their child with autism. And we're looking forward to getting more insight from Dr. Lyons. So let's jump in. Teresa, would you introduce yourself again for our listeners?
Well, I'm very excited to be here with two pediatricians. This is fantastic. I think this is going to be a great conversation. So a little bit of my background. I have a PhD in computational chemistry from Yale University. I was in the pharmaceutical industry doing structure-based drug design and things along those nature. And to make the story very short, my daughter was diagnosed with autism, and that just changed everything.
One of the things that I have seen on your blog is you advise parents build your team and filter out the noise. I'd love for you to kind of go through some of that of who now do I go make appointments with? And I think on your website you mentioned developmental pediatrics and if there's anything particular with school when you're talking with school,
yes.
Those type of things. Yeah.
So school, oh my gosh, school is a whole nother thing. Developmental pediatricians, I think, are great having those conversations about school. So they are hard to get in front of, and I almost think they're harder to get in front of than a pediatric neurologist. It just depends on really where you are. But that's a great expert to really understand school expectations. And the thing with school is, and this is important for parents to know, it's likely going to look different for your child. And parents have to trust their intuition because many parents, they want to homeschool their kids in the beginning where it's like, okay, if they're working on diet, if they're now giving supplements and prescriptions at different timing, many times parents keep their kids at home for a year or, they're really only starting first grade. They're not doing kindergarten. But then there's always that, are they getting socialized? They need socialization. So there's always this conversation to have about what school environment is most appropriate. And development pediatricians are great at that. Other people are too, but that's definitely a specialist when you really want to focus a little bit on the educational piece. That appointment would make sense.
I'm going to echo that. And I'm not even sure I really realized how much this is true, but I have children with learning disabilities. And my developmental pediatrician was the one who took the most interest in, let me see the FIE, let me tell you exactly what I think needs to happen at the school. And then even if one was going in for an evaluation, she might say, tell the school this is the actual test I would like them to do.
Yeah, and I can't guarantee it, but they tend to have more focus on the school. And they tend to be like, no, let me tell you what to tell the school.
Yes,
they get very, very opinionated about certain aspects, which is good. And they teach you how to advocate. Because then advocating for the school is a whole nother, you're an autism parent, right? You get that diagnosis, but now you are really an advocate, especially if your child can't speak. Mm-hmm. So now you're advocating in, doctor's appointments with therapists. Well, just wait, school is a whole nother thing where you have to learn how to be an advocate. So that's another skill that parents really need to learn. And I know for me, it was when I first did it, the first IEP meeting that I had, I walked out of there and I'm like, I don't even know if I did a good job. Like, what's my metric here? I don't know. So sometimes it is, you're just kind of figuring it out as you go along.
Yes, like many things in parenting, but this with a higher stress level for sure.
And then also hearing. So even if your child has an autism diagnosis, there are some really great hearing tests to do to make sure there isn't any issue with hearing and then also producing certain sounds for speech. So those are, conventional medicine, very basic. Insurance is likely going to cover all of that. This is a process that takes time. This is not something that just changes, in a month, right? You see TikTok videos, 7 days, everything's all... No, that does not work, right? So you need that resilience. You need that team around you who know what your goal is and can help you get there regardless of how a particular day went. So we've created the Navigating Autism platform, and we pair parents with a board-certified health coach, because this is a process that takes time. This is not something that just changes, in a month, right? We also put parents in a small group coaching with the health coach so that they can see other parents and really see how other parents are handling this situation, and like-minded parents who are like, I want science. I don't want to guess. Yeah. I don't want to just give my kid, this and that. I really want to understand why I'm doing. And we teach them how to identify what their child needs, and then how do you get good doctors, because doctors make all the difference. We also have functional medicine lab testing that parents can order and really start to analyze on a molecular level. How is their child doing? Are there different deficiencies? Are there issues in a variety of things? And have lab tests to guide you, not just guessing. So we really teach parents the science, so then the guesswork is removed from that. So that's how I work with parents.
I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the things that you've said. So first and foremost, we know that you're a chemist by training. And what I want to point out to parents, if they have any interest, they should go look at your YouTube channel or website, because you've really taken your science background and created just a wealth of information for parents regarding everything that's out there on autism. And we get asked questions all the time about different types of supplements, different type of multivitamins. There's so much out there. It can be overwhelming as parents and for us as pediatricians. But just to highlight some of the things you have videos on. You have videos on leucovorin and folinic acid, on stem regen, on all different types of multivitamins that are marketed as vitamins for autism, on prebiotics, probiotics, and supplements, on constipation, over-the-counter treatments, all of these things that are marketed to families of children with autism. And you've taken these products and you've just really presented the data that's out there. What's in them? How would people use them? If there's research and data, what that data shows. So I really think that's a great resource for parents who want to take a deep dive on some of these supplements and nutritional options that are out there. In addition to all these other things you have a whole section on what is stimming. What does that look like? What is visual stimming? What are the different types that you might see in your child with autism? A whole section on communication and how to teach your child to communicate in different ways, depending on their level of communication and their abilities.
I also love, you have another section that's kind of like a book club where you analyze books that talk about parenting children with autism, or people's personal stories about parenting a child with autism, or stories that are written by an individual with autism, just endless resources for parents. So I think there's so much interesting stuff on your website and YouTube channel, which is part of why we were excited to have you on our show. But that could just be a really good resource for those parents who want to research everything they can and are scared as to where to get good information, because trustworthy resources are very hard to find.
Correct. Yep. So I've had a YouTube channel for over 10 years. As crazy as that sounds, but I've been making videos on different scientific publications and just explaining the science, and also teaching parents how they can understand if that's relevant for their child. So, what does this address? And I try to list it out so a parent can be like, oh, that doesn't really apply to us. Okay, I can let that go and let me find what really is what my child needs.
Maybe you can, going through the experiences you have and interacting with the parents that you do, I'd love to hear if you have some thoughts of hope or encouragement for parents when they're maybe feeling in that low point after a diagnosis is made. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so you're gonna have good days and bad days throughout this whole journey. And I know for me, one of the things that held me back a lot was my expectation to resolve things like really quickly. Like, all right, let me just, and so I started putting more and more pressure on myself as to you've got to figure this out, and that negative voice would just get louder and louder. So I think it's really important for parents to tune into that, because it's not helpful to have those kind of thoughts. And this is part of the reasons why we have health coaches to work with parents, because that mindset is really important as to whether or not you continue, right? It can happen where you just feel defeated. And if you don't have anyone around you supporting you and not giving you like overinflated, all right, rah, 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 let's go, right? It's acknowledging those hard days. Like, okay, this day was hard, right? Maybe your child had a tough time at school and you got called from work and you had to come and you had some presentation and now your boss is mad at you because you had to cancel something with a client. So like you the stress is just kind of building up in every direction. It's extremely tough. So it's just, all right, let me just, sometimes you're just trying to make it to the next day. And you can't really have all that future thinking because you're just projecting a negative day 20 years out, right? So when you're in that stressed mode, that's all you can see is how this is never going to get any better. And then that does not help the mindset either. So in those days when you have those really tough times, it's important to not try and go positive. I never try and tell a parent, oh, it'll be great. Like, because I'm sure people tried to tell me that and I'd be like, no, like, stop. Like,
It's not great.
yeah, exactly. So sometimes it's just, okay, I'm not going to go down that road because that's not helpful whatsoever. And I think it's also important for parents to understand, okay, as you start resolving things, what does that look like? Because on social media, you just see this change from like, oh, here's the video, and then, they give you a little snapshot. Oh, this is a couple of weeks later, or, a year later, or, something like that. Time evolved, but we don't feel that. Social media just kind of cuts it out. And when you're starting to resolve things, you start out more bad days than good days. Usually like almost all bad days, right? And then the bad days start to get a little bit less, maybe a little less intense. And then they start to get not as often. And it's always one of my favorite things where a parent has shifted into like maybe even good day, days, or maybe even a little more good days. And then they have a bad day and they're like, whoa, what's going on? This is horrible. And then it's like, wait a second. When was the last time you had a bad day like this? Oh, right. So if you don't celebrate your success and celebrate the things that are changing, it will take a bad day to remind you, whoa, we haven't had a bad day in a while. So much can change on the day to day, but it's cumulative. And if you're not really paying attention to that, you could miss so much great stuff if you don't change your mindset, like, oh, this is terrible, we're gonna have another bad day. So it really takes so much. Yes, you have to find the right doctors and you have to pay attention to diet and you have to pay attention to all of these different things, right? But then you also have to pay attention to yourself because your child could start to change, but then you're stuck in crisis mode and then you end up being the one holding back your child because you're kind of hovering and being like, okay, when's the next problem? And they're like, whoa, we've done some stuff. Like, I'm good. So it's important for parents to really understand that aspect of the autism journey.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's really well said. Really well said.
Thank you. And I will give one more scientific fact on this. So believe it or not, there was a scientific research publication on the analysis of TikTok videos and autism.
Oh, I am with bated breath on what you're going to say.
And so what the researchers did was they evaluated the top 100 most popular videos. What's most popular, right? Has the most views, the most likes. And they found out that 70% of those popular videos were either wrong in what they were saying about autism or they were overgeneralized. So yes, you can get inspired, you can get ideas from social media, but it's not really where you want to get your information from that you're going to actually make decisions on. So it's really important for parents to understand that with TikTok, that the evidence shows it's not factual.
Yeah, no, that's really well said.
Preach it.
If the parent is searching for information like this and listening to your podcast, many times parents have this sense of guilt. What did I do? Did I not do enough? Did I fail somehow? And if you're listening to this podcast, if you're searching information as to how to help your child, you didn't knowingly do anything wrong. And so it's important to let that guilt go. And it might take some time, but the quicker you can let that guilt go, the quicker you'll be in that neutral mindset so that you can really make some quality decisions.
I think that's such an important point.
I want to thank Teresa Lyons for coming on our show today. You've done such a great job describing what autism is like as a parent who experienced it, and then what steps that parents can take in advocating for their child after they're diagnosed. So thank you so much for coming on to our show.
Thank you for having me.
This is 10 Kids, 2 Docs. I'm Dr. Sylvia Bank.
I'm Dr. Vivian Carlin.
And I'm Dr. Teresa Lyons.
See you next time.
See you next time. Earlier this season, we released a 3-part series on autism with a special guest, Dr. Julia Jackson, who is a child psychiatrist and a parent of an autistic child. I recommend you go back and listen to those episodes for a more detailed description of testing and services and for a different perspective on what it's like to have a child diagnosed with autism as an adolescent.
Thank you for listening to 10 Kids, 2 Docs, hosted and created by Sylvia Bank and Vivian Carlin. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and recommend our podcast to other listeners. Visit our website at 10kids2docs.com, where you can find links to social media and leave comments or suggestions. Back next week with more topics in parenting.
The views expressed in this podcast were those of Dr. Teresa Lyons and Navigating Autism. The views of Navigating Autism do not necessarily reflect official policy or position of 10 Kids, 2 Docs. Thank you for listening.